Back to Cheddar, everyone. Earlier this week, Lyft announced it is expanding into Toronto. It's the first international city for the ride-hailing startup. This comes as the city of one of more than 230 that submitted a bid to house Amazon's HQ2. Joining us now is Toronto Mayor John Tory and Bonnie Crombie. She's mayor of Mississauga, which is right next door to Toronto. And Mayor Tory, let's start with you. Toronto has expanded its immigration programs to help companies expedite the hiring process. How key is this to attracting business from Lyft and from other tech companies as well?
Well, it's one of the big attractions. I mean, not only do we have a region that already consists of 6 million people, between Toronto, Mississauga, and many of the other cities that make up the region, but we are also open to new talent coming from around the world because we know we need that talent. The companies who want to invest in the Toronto region need that talent. And so we've, for example, got a new visa in place where if you have somebody from India or from China who is a bright software engineer, you can get a visa theoretically, and it's working quite well, in 2 weeks to get those people in so they can be part of your business and part of making it go and make sure we can attract global talent to fuel these businesses, whether it's Lyft or anybody else.
In terms of attract
talent visa.
Yeah, and in terms of attracting that talent too, of course, we know that Toronto did bid for the second headquarters for Amazon, but one of the items around that is this scarcity of rental housing. And so even trying to attract talent, anyone from overseas to work there. Bonnie, maybe you can speak to that a bit in terms of just what the area is trying to do to get more rental properties on the market.
So certainly we both have our strategies in Mississauga. We have a making room for the middle strategy because we want people to be able to live and work in our city. Now our prices are relatively affordable when you compare to some of the U.S. prices. Our salaries are lower compared to yours. Our rents are lower. The price of real estate is lower, but for us it's high. But we're doing what we can to attract more investment and incentivize development of middle-class housing stock. Now John's gone a long way into increasing the stock in his city, and of course I have as well.
And the question of affordability is an important one, but from a number of perspectives. So we're working on the housing, but people should know that on wages, for example, for software engineers and tech talent, it's 30% below, plus the currency, which also is an additional advantage. On many other aspects of the cost of doing business, corporate taxes, healthcare.
26%,
I mean, when you pay your corporate
lower.
taxes, you're paying for your healthcare because there's not an additional charge because it's all run in one system effectively by the government. So there's huge cost advantages in addition to a deep pool of talent.
Are you still in talks with Amazon about a potential?
Well, when you say in talks, we put in a regional bid and we submitted it.
We're
waiting to hear from them. So there aren't a lot of talks going on, but I don't think there are a lot of talks going on with anybody. They're just assessing their bids, and we think ours, from the standpoint of a talent pool, great locations through the region, cost differentials, the healthcare system, the supply of talent, that we've got a very competitive bid, but we'll see.
We're really hopeful we're going to make it into the next round, and then I guess it will depend on whether they'll put that headquarters out of the other side of the border. I think that'll be a consideration, but when you compare the cost structure in Canada, particularly in the Greater Toronto area where we're both from, it's very compelling. There are a lot of advantages. Like our corporate tax rate is 26%. It's 12% lower than most U.S. states.
Well, and of course, most U.S. companies don't end up paying, the 35% taxes. We could have a whole show about this. I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on here right now. Of course you are. Look, when I was tweeting about this a few weeks ago, talking about Toronto being one of the cities that could get HQ2, someone got in touch with me and talked about how at the border, a lot of engineers have trouble, and a lot of American employees and non-American employees have trouble getting between the Canada and U.S. border, whether they're flying in, whether they're driving in, and how that could be an obstacle to Toronto actually winning the bid for this.
I will say to you in all seriousness, you would expect us to say this, but the bottom line is I suspect those are coming from people who are maybe trying to make sure our interests are put forward. Because
this was a journalist.
But people could tell you there is very little. There's great mobility back and forth across the border. We have something called a global entry nexus card that allows seamless movement back and forth. We have now put these provisions in place that we were mentioning earlier on, the talent visa, to make sure if there's some superbly talented person that you want in, not just over a period of months, but right away. And then the notion of people moving back and forth on a weekly basis if they're going up and down between Canada and the U.S., it's virtually seamless. I mean, there are problems from time to time, but they're very rare, and people are going back, millions of people are going back and forth every month in the largest trading relationship in the world. So I think this is overstated by your correspondent, and I think most people find they have a very good and seamless and mobile relationship back and forth.
What are you expecting to hear from Amazon on the next round, whether or not you made it into the next round?
We understand by the end of this year they'll have made some decisions about the second round.
And is there anything that the city and area is doing to prep for what they would require in the second round? I don't know if they're going to be soliciting any more information from you all.
I expect there'll be site visits planned. So that's what we're hopeful for. They'll come out and actually see Toronto region and take a better look at us.
We hope they will. I mean, Google Sidewalk just decided to locate it in the Toronto region,
right.
and when they did, they said literally Dan Doctoroff stood up at the announcement and said, "Well, if I was Amazon, I would just say they should just be picking this place because we've studied it very carefully, and there's just no place that matches in terms of talent, cost differential, tax rates, healthcare system, livability of the city." So that's the pitch we made.
We're the whole package.
We didn't offer a big check. There's no big check in our envelope. It talks about what we're going to do as a differentiator, for example, is the government of Ontario, the province in which we're in like a state, is going to make a huge continuing investment in STEM graduates to produce more, so there's a pool of talent, because in the end, that's what these companies want more than anything else. AI, STEM graduates.
Science, technology, engineering, math, and then artificial intelligence. We're making huge investments, graduating 25% more candidates through the program. So we're investing heavily into education. And I think there are very few regions that can offer 50,000 people of a talent pool that are highly trained, highly skilled, mobile, speak different languages, are very diverse. So I think that's our competitive advantage.
I interviewed John Oringer a few weeks ago. He's the founder of Shutterstock. It was one of the big early tech companies, of course, here in New York City. The company did recently announce 2 acquisitions, both of them coming from Canada, one from the Toronto area in particular. What is so hot about Toronto right now in terms of tech?
Well, I think, in the tech, it starts with talent. Because as Bonnie was saying, we have tens of thousands of graduates coming out every year, and we have directed our system. The university system in Canada is controlled, when I say controlled by, it's directed by the government because they're all public universities, and we have had more of an emphasis on technology and AI graduates and so on, and built up probably the largest single resource of AI expertise in the world, generally acknowledged. So we've been able to do things like that as a matter of public policy, and then there's the livability of the cities and of the region. And I think if you combine those two things, it's made it a very hot place to be. Talent, taxes, costs, and livability. And so we've been able to grow into being what's commonly acknowledged as the second or third biggest tech hub in the Toronto region in the world, in North America.
Let me also add that we are a very desirable place for new immigrants to locate. We take 100,000 new immigrants every year. We heavily screen them, of course we do. And they're only able to come in because they're highly educated and highly skilled, or they're investing in new businesses. And I think that adds to our talent pool.
So I have to ask, because we have so much debate about immigration here in the U.S., and especially for high skills immigration in terms of Silicon Valley, what is the U.S. getting wrong about immigration? Let's start. Go ahead.
Well, we are a very vibrant, inclusive, dynamic region. And I think that is because we are so diverse. We have people from everywhere, 200 different countries, speaking 200 different languages, different cultures, religions, and we don't tolerate each other. We don't just respect each other, we celebrate each other. And I think that makes a difference. We're very inclusive of each other, and it just works. It absolutely works in Canada.
50% of the population of the region we're from, the Toronto region,
born somewhere else.
We're born somewhere else. And they've built our region up. I mean, they are responsible for why we're as prosperous as we are today. So we look at it as an opportunity. It isn't a problem. It hasn't been a problem. It's been a huge benefit to us.
It's been a benefit.
And we can't obviously explain what goes on in other countries, including the United States, but we just know for us it's been a huge benefit, and that we're expanding immigration, and in particular making it easier for really smart, qualified people, including in the tech field, to come to our country, because we want them to help us build up the tech ecosystem that exists.
In the tech space, have you witnessed Americans leaving the U.S. to come to Toronto because they're displeased with the current government?
It's hard to know why people move.
Americans, but from around the world, certainly. Especially our graduate programs are oversubscribed like we've never seen before.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say it's hard to know why people, but we certainly have seen an increase in the number of Americans wanting to come to Canada in particular. As Bonnie said, we've had a huge increase in the number of foreign students, foreign from any country outside Canada, applying to our universities. So who knows why those things change, but the bottom line is we're happy that, we want to be a talent magnet, so we're happy whether it's students or people working. We had trouble even recruiting back Canadians from Silicon Valley in past years because there was more opportunity there. We're not having the same kind of trouble anymore because they now see a bigger opportunity in the Toronto region tech ecosystem, and so they'll come back because of the quality of life and because of things like maternity benefits and the healthcare system and all that.
We're one of the safest cities in Canada.
Well, you might have to join us again before the end of the year if you make it to the second round, right?
We'll be here if we have that happy news. Thank you.
Sounds like we should do Cheddar Toronto.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, we'd like that.
We might be considering
We'll give you a couple of high-tech startups from our region to interview on why they stayed, why they started their companies in our our region, and why they didn't go to Silicon Valley, why they stayed.
Interesting, very interesting. Okay, Toronto Mayor with us, John Tory, and Bonnie Crombie, Mayor of Mississauga. Thank you both for joining us again.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.